Hi, and welcome back to Bots and Beyond. Our first episode recorded in 2023, and it's quite fitting because I made my 2023 predictions in an article late last year, and one of those predictions is around process orchestration. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome James Hall, CEO of our partner Innate, to the episode this week. So hi, James.
Hi, Wayne. Thank you for the invite. Great to be here.
Superb. And obviously, I have known you for a long time, and we'll get into some of that as we go through the episode. But for those who don't know you as well as I, it'd be great if you can do our usual Bots and Beyond intro, which is who you are, what you do, and more importantly, why you do it.
Great, will do. Thank you, Wayne. So, James Hall, I'm the CEO at Innate. And Innate is a software as a service company, and we focus on productivity software in the back office, middle office, and very much tied into this broader intelligent automation journey. And as we'll get into more detail in a while, Innate helps facilitate scaling the AI journey for companies. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm sure the CEO role doesn't need much explanation. But I got involved with Innate, having had quite a long history with the founder and CTO, Kit Cox, and really loved what he was doing. We had a vision together for where the software could go way back when, and it was with another company I was working with at the time that we had those discussions. And the opportunity to join as CEO came up beginning of this year, and I took it with both hands. And I know a number of the team. I enjoy working with them. And actually the journey to date, I think we'll discuss a bit more about how we get into, what is process orchestration and where have I come from. But the reasons you do these things are often multifaceted, but really it's about the people, the team, the community. And obviously in lockdown, we all spent a lot more time on our own or locked in rooms. And a chance to come out and lead a company in fast growth where we're building something at a time actually we can get out and meet people again is truly wonderful. So, why do I do it? I think it's the people, the community. But at heart also, I'm an engineer, and I like building things. I like building sustainable things that deliver value. And that's very much what we're doing at Innate, and on a very exciting journey, which I enjoy sharing with you.
I know that we have a really interesting story here. You kind of alluded to this not being your first gig. I know, obviously, you've been a CEO of another intelligent automation capability before. I know, even before then, when we met, you worked within the BPO industry. So you've got an interesting past that's kind of led you to where you are today. I mean, talk a little bit more about that history, that background.
Yeah, and I think it's like so many things. Sometimes we talk about serendipity, but in my case, so many things came together at once, and that was in 2012. So my career to that point had been largely in business process outsourcing, and in fact, I joined Accenture as a graduate when their very nascent outsourcing business was just getting started, and they were with outsourcing of IT services, but also a landmark deal in finance and accounting, which they did with BP upstream at the time. And I joined as a graduate in solutions and then got involved in sales. And for the next 20 years, I spent time with large companies. Accenture was Ansys Consulting at the time, but they grew very rapidly. And I spent time with IBM, with another startup called Exalt in the HR outsourcing space, which was ultimately bought by Hewitt. And in all of that, all of the outsourcing value drivers, value levers, if you like, got to learn about the economies of scale, the offshoring wave, some of the productivity wave that took place through application of technology, workflow, and of course telecoms. The cost of telecoms dropped dramatically over the years of from the late 90s into the 2000s, and that really enabled a business model that was rapidly changing, very different in terms of where work was done and how it was being done. So one of the things that then sort of became clear, and I was getting a bit frustrated that there was still an awful lot of work that was being planted in offshore locations and not actually being improved before it went there. So I think I heard it referred to once as the parking lot for work. In other words, let's lift it, shift it, and just do it from somewhere cheaper. And that was starting to frustrate me in terms of there'd got to be a better way. And then I came across, or was introduced to, a software company called Blue Prism, which I'm sure many of your audience will know was the first of the companies that was delivering robotic process automation, or RPA. And I think you and I would have recognized it back in 2012 as operational agility software, as it was called. It's only when it became RPA it became very famous. But that started showing a way that we could get automation, that long tail of process that wasn't being picked up by large systems, operational systems. And I think it started a whole wave of automating out this work, right? For whether it's been done well or otherwise, the need was there. And getting back to your question, I was working at a outsourcing company called Capita at the time, and thought we needed to implement this software, Blue Prism, into one of their clients. And we did so, but in doing so, made every mistake in the book that was possible to be made, from how we set up the architecture, how we put the software in place. But there was no rule book there. Then there was no methodology for how it was done. It was very pioneering, and there were a few exceptions where scale had been achieved, the likes of what you'd done with O2, as someone who put equally their career on the line to deliver something that was new and innovative. My realization after this set of problems we had implemented the first client is that I'd done it one more time than anyone else. And I had a strong belief that this automation wave was going to happen, that we'd see a lot more of RPA. And I set up a company called Gen4. We were the pioneer. We were Blue Prism's first ever go-to-market partner. Equally, we were the first Path go-to-market partner. And in fact, we found UiPath when there were 13 of them in a flat in Bucharest. And I remember talking to Daniel Dines and the team at why was this important? Why was RPA important in this market space? And the rest is history with them. Of course, their IPO happening last year, and the way they scaled out that software business was quite incredible. So Gen4 grew to about 70 people in 4 years. Interestingly, we can implement bots, but what I was actually trying to build was a BPO company that didn't have people in it. And I quite enjoyed telling a lot of the Indian outsourcers at the time that I was building a Mumbai cost base in Bristol in the UK by employing lots of bots and very few people. And actually, we had 12 people running around 100 bots doing the work of over 300 people out of an operations centre in South Wales. And we were managing SLAs. We had built a platform that would recognize if bots had gone down and needed to be repaired, put back to work. And so effectively, we were taking charge of delivering the work that was being done by the bots. We also packaged it up to sell this concept of a robot hour. So you're paying for an hour of a robot's time, and a very simple way for customers to their RPA capability. And in fact, you see a lot more of those models now sort of coming in as people getting into more the managed service side of looking after bots on behalf of clients. So a very interesting time. And we found in that or during that time that RPA would have a significant role. In some organizations it would scale a lot more than in others, depending on what work was there. Ultimately, we were seeing 5 to 10% of the work in a typical back middle office was something that could be automated. And of course, it explains why we've had this tremendous growth over the last few years. One is the idea of automation, and it's very much back at the fore that this is something that needs to be radically looked at and employed as a solution for organizations. It's not lost on anyone, the challenge to find good people to work in operation these days, and putting them to work on mindless tasks is absolutely not a winning formula. So very interesting from a productivity perspective, but also what it's enabling in organizations. And I think that was explained, our rapid growth, what we built, and ultimately when we exited to Accenture in 2017, the short but very significant journey of a pioneer in the RPA delivery space, and there's lots of organisations out now that are doing this and building out their models. And we'll talk a bit more in a minute about the other components of technology that are coming into play now as it gets more intelligent and the scale gets greater.
Okay, and I think this is a testament, the fact that you exited to Accenture in 2017, had already been working on this for 4.5 years, and most people had still not even heard of the technology. So, when we talk about early pioneers, you really are one of a small handful. And I do joke about this quite frequently, that during those early days at O2, yourself was exposed to the work that we were doing there. Some of the guys over at Symphony were exposed to that, and I felt like maybe I was the only one that didn't go and create a successful company as a result of that early knowledge. Now, clearly you spotted something there, and you've now made the move into process orchestration. So you must have spotted something here. There must be a specific reason, a gap in the market, just something that is causing you to want to make this move within the intelligent automation space, but maneuvering to process orchestration. So talk to us a little bit about what it is. And again, I made a prediction about this in my 2023 predictions. So clearly I'm on board. But for everybody else's benefit, what is it, and why do you think it's going to be important?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It was the first time I really had a proper introduction to eNate, and the idea of process organization or orchestration was a conversation I had with Kit Cox, who was the founder and now CTO at eNate, and we drew up a vision of what we thought it could be, and what it would look like. And we've spent, the next 5 years talking about that and developing eNate into a position where it can really go and take on this market. But let me go back one step before that. So if you remember at Gen 4, I was looking at how do you build a more holistic operational delivery capability, but using automation tools and techniques. And we were at a very early stage starting to combine components of technology to deliver broader outcomes. So a classic example, and we've seen lots of it take place since, is taking intelligent data processing, an IDP tool. And there were a couple of very early pioneers around at the time in 2015, 2016 that, were potentially hard to work with, a bit mystical how they worked. Outcomes weren't perhaps as great as they needed to be at the time, but we were combining that RPA to expand, if you like, the remit or the role of automation. So an IDP tool could take unstructured data, importantly, and draw out the components of information that you needed to continue with the process and complete the task. So we started to pull these together, and we're thinking hard about how do we add that into an ecosystem of technologies. And I'm sure, Wayne, as you talk about, and you probably do a much nicer job now of discussing, I think you pulled these components into your periodic table of automation components and how they fit together. But that, that thinking, and we were doing that for clients at Gen 4. The other piece that was dramatically missing for me is that whereas we had automated components running, actually we really didn't have much visibility as to what was going on in the operation more broadly. And as you know, today there's so much of the work, or still 80-90% of the work is done by people, and actually the productivity there, or improving their ability to work, is fundamentally important. And knowing where your work is, knowing that all that work can get delivered by a certain date or a certain time according to the priorities that are being set by the business, avoiding awkward handovers or rework. But we realized, most of the conversation I had with Kit, we realized that actually with a tool that could see all the work that people were doing and organize that work, put workflows in place, that you could weave in all these automated components as well, and digital workers and human workers working in tandem in an orchestrated way to deliver on the outputs of an operation. So that's where the genesis of this came in. And of course, if you think about what I was trying to build was something that, an operation that didn't need people to deliver everything. And clearly that's a massive overstatement. You're always going to need people, but how much of that work can be done by technology was the key question. So I think if I have a failing in this space is I recognize things early and maybe think they're done before they are. RPA, I sold Gen 4 way before it really hit mass market awareness. And I think with orchestration, I think that's a problem that's starting now to be recognized. Lots of technologies or components of technology are being used. So RPA, we all know that's getting or has been rolled out in many, many places now to various degrees of success. But people have also been working with chatbots. They've been working with intelligent data processing tools. But ultimately, there's still a human that's kind of pulling all this together, from where one leaves off or the other picks up. And to have straight through processing, I think is quite rare, that you've got something handling or orchestrating all of this work through an operation. And that's really where we come in. And interestingly, we can talk more about the proposition that eNate or an orchestrator can bring, but there's huge productivity just from making people to people handoffs work more efficient before you even start bringing automated technologies into play. But that was effectively the vision. And I was an investor in eNate in 2018 and a director. And I was asked if I would come and join as CEO by Kit and the board at the beginning of 22. So it was about February time, and I joined in May. And really that was to bring my experience, but also I'm a bit more tuned into the sales and marketing areas, whereas Kit is focused around technology, or enables him to focus around the technology. So for me, it was just a terrific opportunity to get more involved in this space, which I think now is becoming super relevant. And all solutions need to start with a problem, in my view, but I think the problem's being more broadly recognized, that there's a space for orchestration in operations to bring all this together.
Right. So I guess just to summarize on some of that, we have multiple different technologies being used. We still have a high component of human labor being required to do work. And the gap really is that a technology that can bring and combine both people and technology to complete work in a more visible, streamlined manner is the kind of gap that you are filling, and that makes loads of sense. By the way, and I often have said this before. The reason why we haven't seen automation maybe grow as prevalently across all parts of an organization is when we create work, when we created work and process, we created it with people right at the very center. The greatest problem solving device the world has and will ever see, at least for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, is the human brain. And when you have that in the middle of your process, you can make loads of shortcuts that you just couldn't make if you really had to use technology instead. And so, having a tool that can bring the best of people and technology together, I can certainly see how and why that would be incredibly relevant, especially as the no code, low code revolution continues. Low code app building tools, conversational AI, as you mentioned, RPA, and all these other intelligent automation capabilities are all coming together. So something that can orchestrate across all of those, the flow of work I think, or will continue to be incredibly relevant. That's great. I think that really helps bring some of this together. Couple more questions, I guess, just to dig into this before we draw a close on the episode. So, in your view, who is the buyer? Who are the people or the teams that kind of need this most? Who are you looking at as the kind of the golden ticket from a needs perspective within an organization?
Well, typically we have the best and deepest conversations with operational leaders, transformation leaders, or digital transformation leaders, and they have across their back and middle office operations. So you find them in obviously in lots and lots of places, from insurance and back office to just about any sector out there, all have this kind of challenge. There's a couple of things that are, interesting about what we do, and I think the approach that we're taking that's very relevant. A lot of to date of the intelligent automation journey has been, here's the technology, and isn't it great? Isn't it capable? And in all of that, and I think you were just saying, what about that super thing in the middle of all of it, the human being? But so much isn't designed for the human being, and I think we've got a little bit focused on being too kind of the bots are the taking Copernicus, right? Bots, but everything spins around them. Well, actually, it doesn't. It needs to spin around the organization, the work they're trying to deliver to their customers, and the idea of the human in here. I always think they get a bit of a raw deal picking up from one capability to another. And how do we make a software that actually resonates, that people can work with, that's intuitive and actually empowers people to improve the service they can provide? And part of the approach that we've taken here, one of the reasons we can implement very quickly, is that with eNate, we're looking to drive consistency, not absolute standardization. And there's so many parts of operations that have lots of complexity or variation, and therefore lots of humans, and sometimes struggling to scale putting automation in place. But actually, you can drive consistency at a high level across the process and allocate the work according to competency of people, but take out a lot of the noise and pain of receiving work, of handing work on, of being able to ingest the task that needs to be done. And that's been a huge part of our focus at eNate, is to actually put something in that people can work with intuitively. But also, you mentioned low code and the governance that goes around this, and where you empower the worker. So you can have this concept of a master developer that looks after that sort of top level structure of how work is done, but actually you empower lots of citizen developers to tweak it for their client, for their organization. So our largest client has 62 countries, thousands of clients, and covers work from payroll to legal services to fiduciary to accounting. And all of those things manage to be included in an eNate consistent way of working and orchestrated across 4,000 people across all those countries and different services. So it's a slightly different approach. And some would, if you say, well, think of is it workflow? Well, yes, it does provide workflow, but it's not, a 12, 18 month journey into standardization in order to get the answer. It's something that works much more intuitively, much more flexibly than that, and is focused around people and people being able to work more productively. So that's, I think, really important, and especially at the time, as we said earlier, the finding good people is a huge challenge. Keeping good people is even more so, and I think more than ever, people are looking for purpose at work, and we're coming, the generations coming in now have been 3 clicks on a smartphone from just about whatever they want. So how do we handle that in the systems that we provide and work with our employees, let alone, what we need to provide to our customers? So that for us has been really important, putting the human back in the loop here and getting everything to work in sync.
Fantastic. And you mentioned huge numbers there of people using the capability and lots of different departments. I'm interested in what type of value then, an organization like that might see in the fact that they can now see work, they can allocate work, whether that is a human or a technology. Talk to us about some of the value that you and all your clients are actually seeing as a result of orchestrating work in an improved fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting to the point now. We're getting some really interesting results and case studies. First thing to say, if you ask the question, do you know where your work is? And how many people can't actually answer, where is the work? Who's doing what, where, and when? And do you know it's covered? Is it being picked up? Is it being tracked? Is it going to be delivered on time? And being able to monitor that and get early warning if you're not going to hit your targets or your SLAs to achieve it. That's something that's really important, and the information we can provide around or to an operations leader is invaluable when it comes to understanding those things, and indeed who can do what type of work. So you can start to move work around according to competency across the team, and not just because that's the silo or the work group that's always done it, actually starting to break down, and get a bit more resilience and flexibility into the operation. So that's been really key. I talked about productivity earlier. We're seeing consistently 20% plus now. Our largest client, TMF, is public. We're saving them 32 million a year annual savings with over 20% productivity across a user base at the time of about 3,700 across, and that was 32 countries. So quite impressive productivity. All of that, interestingly, comes from human productivity, not even what comes from introducing other automation capabilities. This is about reducing errors, effective handoffs, managing work effectively, work not getting lost. All of those things. It's as a productivity tool where you now have visibility and management of that work. So that's a great result. The other thing when we've talked about quite a bit is what happens now is you can start weaving in different automation components. We're building out lots of integrations with various technical capabilities, effectively building out that ecosystem. Very soon you'll hear us announce a marketplace for ecosystem partners that can readily integrate into eNate, and how a workforce can then engage with various different automation technologies in a seamless way. And that's a really important part of us developing in this intelligent automation ecosystem. So lots of examples coming online now of how we do that, and across a lot of different technologies. I think the other thing that I think is going to be very rare, especially as we're going into a less certain economic environment, is speed to value. We work with Infosys, and they use eNate now as their preferred tool for their BPO operations. So as they bring on new work, their answer for workflow and orchestration of work is eNate. One of the great values to them is the speed of implementation. So as you think about a BPO, business processes outsourcing type deal, you need to bring on the knowledge transfer and get things working in a stable fashion very rapidly. And that brings our implementation time, we're in the 6 to 8 weeks. We need to bring that down to 4 to 6 weeks to make that really, really effective for Infosys. And indeed, that speed to value is repeatable across all our clients. So it's a really key one to get that value quickly and get that initial productivity out, and then set in place a tool that can facilitate digital transformation at scale.
Amazing. And some fantastic numbers mentioned in there. And I guess the key thing for me is that this isn't necessarily replacing existing investments. It's kind of in parts amplifying the value that you can make from investments you've already made. I guess would that resonate with you?
Well, very much so. And we have quite a number of conversations where people say, well, we have this RPA tool or we have this decision tool. How does that integrate? And we just plug it in as a resource in a similar way as you'd have a human that knows how to do something. You have a technology that knows how to do something, and it all comes part of what is orchestrated. But you get visibility of everything that's going on. So very rapid to integrate and roll in what's already working. And the conversation we're having is that it is exactly around this. People are starting to see a lot more handoffs and challenges with, managing work in a different way, because you're trying to pull all these different capabilities together and work effectively together. So that's very much on the regular list of things that we hear and do.
I think there's so many good things to pull out of this particular episode, but I think for the sake of running time, then we should probably draw this one to a close. I know it's certainly one I'm looking forward to re-listening to on one of my daily runs. So thank you ever so much for joining, James.
That's terrific, Wayne, and thanks for your questions. And I say it takes the insight that you have of the industry to be able to draw this out in the way that you have. So Thank you for that. I'd also like to just quickly offer one of the things we have and do offer around our productivity value proposition now, because we can measure it and see it when we put eNate in. We're actually backing ourselves in that we will guarantee a level of productivity on implementation of eNate, or you get some of your money back. And that's how committed we are to making that happen for our clients, but also the confidence that we have in our software. So happy if you want to share that with your audience, and delighted to be taken up on it.
Excellent. I think that's certainly something that many of the audience should be seriously looking into. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining. Thank you everybody else for listening. And we look forward to catching up with you again in a few weeks on the next episode.